It began inside the grand chamber of the Galactic Council, a place built from crystal and light, where voices once promised unity but now only whispered about war. The chamber was silent that morning, too silent, as the delegates of 100 species sat beneath the towering emblems of peace. For 50 years, the galaxy had lived under the Treaty of Soul, a promise born from the ashes of the bloodiest war ever fought among the stars. Humanity had been the first to propose it, the first to bleed for it, and the only ones to believe it would last. They had dismantled their war fleets, melted their weapons, shared their technology, and opened their gates to all. They had done what no other species had dared. They trusted. And for a time it worked. Trade flourished, colonies prospered, and the name Earth once again became a symbol of hope. But peace is fragile, and arrogance is patient. As the years passed, the other empires began to see the treaty not as a symbol of unity but as a chain that kept them from growing stronger. The Varn Dominion called it a cage. The Brack Empire called it weakness. Even the noble Sarin began to whisper that Earth had grown soft, that humans were too emotional, too forgiving, too human. They forgot who ended the war. They forgot the price humanity paid to stop it. They forgot the cities that burned and the soldiers who never returned. And while the galaxy mocked them, humanity rebuilt in silence, quietly, patiently, as if preparing for a future no one else could see. Then came the day the peace died. It began with a whisper, a coded message hidden in the Council's archives. Operation Dawnfall, they called it. A secret order signed by the same hands that had once sworn to protect peace. The plan was simple. Strike 3 of Earth's outer colonies in a single coordinated attack. Capture their resources, disable their defense grids, and force humanity to surrender their influence forever. The Council called it a necessary correction to restore balance among the species. To them, Earth was a relic, useful once but no longer needed. They thought humans would bow as they always had, too noble to fight back. They were wrong. When the first attack began, it was swift and merciless. The skies above Terran colony Epsilon turned red as the fleets of the Varn Dominion broke through the clouds, their ships firing plasma volleys into cities that had no weapons to answer. The screams of children echoed through the comm channels. Hospitals collapsed. Power grids failed. The ground itself cracked under the bombardment. In orbit, the Brack warships blocked all escape routes, destroying civilian transports trying to flee. The Council's report would later call it an act of enforcement. But to those on the ground, it was betrayal. On Vega Prime, the second colony, peace ended before anyone realized it was gone. The people there had lived decades without a single military presence. They believed the treaty protected them. They believed in the words carved into their city gates. Peace is humanity's greatest weapon. When the first missile struck, the city vanished in a flash of white fire. Survivors tried to send distress calls to Earth, but the signals were jammed. One young boy managed to record the last message of Vega Prime before the final explosion swallowed the world. "They said the Council would protect us," he whispered through static. "Why are they the ones killing us?" His voice never reached Earth. The Council deleted it before it could. The third strike came hours later on the mining world of Argos 7. It was the oldest Terran colony, home to descendants of soldiers who had once fought for the treaty. When the attack began, they did not run. They fought. Old ships lifted from dusty hangars, outdated weapons fired into the sky, and men and women who had never seen war faced fleets armed with technology a century ahead of theirs. They knew they could not win, but they refused to die without resistance. The battle lasted 14 minutes. When it ended, nothing was left but silence. Back on Earth, the news came like thunder. Every broadcast across the planet stopped. Every citizen stood still, watching the reports, the flames, the names of colonies they once called home. The Earth Council gathered in the Hall of Nations, their faces pale and quiet. No one spoke for a long time. Finally, one of them whispered, "The Council betrayed us." Another said, "They will pay." But it was not anger that filled the room. It was grief. Humanity had given the galaxy mercy, and the galaxy had answered with fire. In the cold orbit above Earth, inside the command deck of the old defense station Soul's Heart, Admiral Elias Holt stood watching the feed from Argo 7. His jaw was tight, his hands steady, but his eyes burned with a rage that words could not hold. Around him, officers waited in silence. No one dared to speak. They all knew what this meant. 50 years of peace were over. 50 years of patience had reached its end. The admiral turned slowly toward his crew. "Get me the archives," he said quietly. "Activate the vault." The officers froze. The vault was legend, the hidden armory of humanity's last war, buried under the surface of Mars, sealed by law when the Treaty of Soul was signed. It was never meant to be opened again. But now the law had already been broken. Down in the control bays, massive reactors began to hum for the first time in half a century. Deep under the red dust of Mars, mechanical doors opened, revealing black tunnels lined with forgotten weapons, ships without names, drones without light, and codes no alien could ever read. One by one, dormant systems flickered awake, their lights glowing like the eyes of sleeping giants. The silence of half a century cracked. Earth had spoken again, but not with words, with memory. Meanwhile, the Galactic Council held an emergency meeting to discuss the unfortunate misunderstandings at the Terran border. The chamber was full of tension, but none of them showed guilt. The Varn ambassador called the attacks a disciplinary action. The Brack general smiled and said, "The humans will understand their place now." Only one voice, the Saran envoy, dared to protest. "You have made a mistake," she said softly. "They will not forgive this." Laughter filled the hall. Forgive? They have no army. But even as they laughed, reports began to arrive. Strange energy readings from the Sol system, massive power spikes under Mars, and unidentified signals near Jupiter. The laughter died. In the darkness beyond Neptune, human ships long thought scrapped began to move. The old war fleets of Earth, the Ghost Armada, returned to life. Hundreds of vessels, cloaked and silent, powered up their engines, their hulls still bearing the scars of the last war. They had waited patiently, preserved in secret, built not for vengeance but for survival. And now they were ready. Across the stars, old Terran beacons flared to life, transmitting one simple code across every known frequency. It was ancient, from the time before the treaty, a message every soldier once feared to hear. Omega Protocol confirmed. On the Council's world, panic spread. Systems went dark, communications cut off, and ships vanished from scanners. "They're jamming us," shouted a technician. "No," the Saran envoy whispered. "They're watching us." For the first time in decades, the galaxy remembered what fear felt like, the quiet, heavy kind that came when humans stopped talking. Back on Earth, Admiral Holt watched as the transmission reports came in. The Ghost Armada had fully awakened. "All systems online," his officer confirmed. "Awaiting your command." The Admiral stood tall, his reflection shining in the glass as Earth's blue light filled the room. "They called our mercy weakness," he said quietly. "Now they will learn what mercy really means." The message that followed was sent through every frequency, across every world, translated into every tongue. Carried no threats, no hate, just 3 words, soft, human. Final. Mercy is over. The moment those words reached the council chamber, every leader froze. No one dared to move. The Brack general laughed nervously, but the sound broke halfway. "They wouldn't," he whispered. The Saran envoy looked up at the ceiling where the holographic stars flickered and said, "You don't know humans." That night, across the galaxy, strange things began to happen. Council fleets patrolling near human space lost contact. Entire planets experienced power failures as old Terran codes reactivated within their systems. Satellites turned, redirecting their antennas toward Earth. On the outskirts of the Orion Arm, alien miners reported seeing dark shapes moving among the stars, too fast, too quiet, too precise to be natural. Some said they saw ships, others said it was shadows. But every witness agreed on one thing: it was silent and it was watching. The galaxy didn't know it yet, but the war had already begun. Not one of blood or destruction, but of balance, of truth. Earth had not risen to conquer. It had risen to remind. The peace treaty was broken, But humanity still remembered what peace truly meant. It wasn't surrender, it was restraint. And now that restraint was gone. Far away, deep in space, a single Terran probe broadcast a final message before going dark. Its signal was faint, carried by light years of silence. But every civilization that picked it up would never forget its words. "This is Earth," the voice said. "We trusted you. We forgave you. We believed you could change. You taught us otherwise. Now you will remember mercy, as we do." And as the message faded, the stars around Sol began to shift. Hidden gates opened, fleets emerged, and the galaxy finally understood what humanity had been preparing for all those quiet years. The treaty was broken, the peace was dead, and the age of mercy had ended. The galaxy thought humanity was finished. The Treaty of Sol had stripped Earth of its war fleets, its defense stations, even its military academies. The other empires believed they had declawed the one species that once terrified them. But what the galaxy never understood was that humanity never stopped building. They just stopped showing. Beneath the calm blue skies of Earth and the quiet cities on Mars, deep under oceans and ice, something ancient had been sleeping. It was not an army, not a weapon, but a promise. Every generation that lived after the war had been told one rule: if the stars ever turn on us again, wake the light. And now, after the betrayal, that light was stirring. Far beyond the reach of scanners, behind the frozen storms of Jupiter's moons, a shadowed world turned slowly. Its surface looked dead, covered in ice and silence. But under the crust, machines hummed to life. The old hangars opened for the first time in 50 years. Dust fell like snow as colossal doors shifted open, and within the dark, hundreds of ships waited. Their hulls were black as space, shaped not like the warships of old but like reflections of night itself. Engines glowed with faint blue lines pulsing like heartbeats. These were not ordinary ships. They were built from designs forbidden by the treaty, hidden before humanity signed away its power. They were the Ghost Armada, a legend whispered only in secret among the last Terran soldiers. Inside the command deck of the largest ship, Sol's heart, Admiral Elias Holt stood alone. The reflection of Earth's light shimmered across his face as data filled the holographic screens. Around him, the crew watched in silence, waiting for his word. No one had to ask why they were there. They had seen the Council's betrayal. They had watched the colonies burn. Some had family on those worlds. All had sworn never again. Holt's voice was low but steady. "Bring them online." The words spread through the intercoms, carried by trembling voices that answered, "Aye, Admiral." Reactors awoke with a roar that shook the moon beneath them. The void itself trembled as the fleet's engines came alive. On every planet that once belonged to Earth's reach, coded signals pulsed under the surface. Old satellites, thought long dead, began to blink again. In the deep deserts of Mars, towers of metal broke through the sand, revealing the tops of hidden silos. From beneath the crust of Luna, power grids reconnected, linking with something older than the Council itself, the Terran Defense Network, sleeping since the day the treaty was signed. Across the solar system, blue light spread like veins through darkness. The silence that had covered humanity for half a century broke into a hum, low, deep, alive. Far from Sol, in the chambers of the Galactic Council, confusion turned into fear. "We're detecting strange readings from human space," an aide shouted. "Massive energy spikes across multiple systems." The Varn Dominion ambassador slammed his hand against the table. "It's impossible. They have no fleets left." The Sarin envoy's feathers trembled as she whispered, "You were the ones who took their ships. You never took their minds." The room filled with shouts, accusations, denial, but none of it mattered. Humanity had already moved beyond their reach. Back in orbit around Jupiter, the Ghost Armada began to align. Thousands of ships rose from the ice-covered moon, their formations precise, silent, and disciplined. No lights, no transmissions, only the faint glow of engines that burned like dying stars. The fleet structure was perfect, a single wall of power stretching for miles, waiting for command. Admiral Holt watched the display as his AI companion's voice echoed through the bridge. All vessels ready. Awaiting confirmation. Holt took a deep breath, his gaze fixed on the darkness beyond. They called our mercy weakness, he said softly. Let them learn what mercy really is. Without a sound, the fleet began to move. Engines flared, and the ships vanished into the void, cloaked by light-bending shields that rendered them invisible to every known sensor. Within minutes, they were gone. No trace, no radiation, only silence. Across the galaxy, scanners in every system blinked, glitched, and died. A wave of interference spread through Council space, and then entire networks went offline. Planetary defense systems powered down on their own. No one understood what was happening. But deep down, some began to realize the truth. Humanity was no longer asking for peace. It was preparing to define it. At the edge of the Orion Arm, a small alien scout ship drifted near a dust field. Its sensors picked up something massive moving through the dark, too large to be natural, too organized to be a storm. The crew tried to send a warning, but before their message could leave the ship, the static filled their comms. Then a human voice came through, calm, emotionless, almost kind. Turn back. The alien captain froze. Identify yourself, he shouted. But there was no answer. Just the voice again, clearer this time. You broke the peace. Turn back. Then the signal cut out and their engines stopped. The scout ship floated helpless in the void as a shadow passed over it, a shape so large it blocked the stars. The captain looked up at the screen and whispered, "What have we done?" Moments later, the stars returned, and the ship was gone. The report never reached the Council. The transmission was intercepted, decoded, and erased before any other world could hear it. The humans controlled the network now. They had rewritten the galaxy's own communication codes, using systems they themselves had invented centuries ago. It was a silent war, one fought with memory and patience instead of bullets. Every empire that had mocked them now found itself blind. On Earth, the people watched the skies. There were no celebrations, no cheers, only quiet resolve. They had spent generations believing in peace, and now that belief was shattered. Families gathered in their homes, listening to the old news broadcasts from the colonies that no longer existed. In the capital, beneath the statue of the Treaty of Soul, someone had hung a new banner. It was simple, black, with only 3 words written in white. Mercy is over. In orbit, Holt stood on the bridge, watching the transmissions flicker across the galaxy. Status? He asked. All enemy networks are collapsing, replied his officer. They're trying to reboot their systems, but we've locked them out. Holt nodded slowly. Good. No strikes yet. They must understand why we're here before they see what we can do. His voice carried no hatred, only calm certainty. They think mercy is surrender. Let them see its discipline. Across the stars, alien fleets scrambled. Warships launched from Council worlds, their commanders shouting orders to attack. But when they entered Terran sectors, they found nothing. No resistance, no fleets, no sound. The scanners showed empty space, as if Earth itself had vanished. Panic grew. Where are they? One admiral shouted. They can't hide a whole armada. Then, for a split second, the darkness outside their ships shimmered. Something massive moved through it, invisible but not absent. The captains froze as a faint voice cut through every channel. We see you. Then all their systems went black. At the council chamber, the delegates gathered again, trembling as new reports arrived. Entire fleets have gone missing. Our borders are collapsing. We can't reach our colonies. The Saran envoy whispered, They're not attacking us. They're teaching us. No one wanted to believe her, but deep down they all knew. The humans could have destroyed them easily. Instead, they were showing them what helplessness felt like. The same helplessness Earth had felt when its colonies burned. Admiral Holt stood in silence as his fleet glided past Saturn's rings. The debris of old war stations shimmered beneath the light, ghosts of the last time the galaxy called humanity weak. Do you think they'll beg? One of his lieutenants asked quietly. Holt's eyes stayed fixed on the stars. They won't have to, he said. By the time we're done, they'll understand what mercy costs. The lieutenant hesitated. And when they do? Holt's voice softened. Then we'll forgive them. But not yet. The AI's voice interrupted gently. Admiral, the Council has sent a message requesting a meeting. Holt raised an eyebrow. Already? The AI nodded. They claim the attacks were an accident. A faint smile crossed Holt's face. Accident. That's what they called the deaths of millions. His hand closed into a fist. Send them a reply. The AI asked, what should it say? Holt turned toward the viewport, where the fleet's reflection gleamed like a line of fire across the void. Tell them mercy is over, he said quietly. The message traveled faster than light, carried by human-coded networks that no other species could track. It reached the Council's communication hub within seconds. The delegates gathered, staring at the screen as the words appeared. Plain, white, final. Mercy is over. For the first time in galactic history, no one argued, no one shouted. Even the BRAC general sat in silence. In that moment, the galaxy understood the true weight of the words it had once mocked. Humanity's silence had never been weakness. It had been warning. And now, as the Ghost Armada moved through the black like a storm waiting to break, the galaxy realized that the war they feared was not coming. It had already begun. The council chamber that once roared with confidence now shook with fear. The delegates who had once mocked humanity's kindness sat in silence, their eyes fixed on the giant holographic display hovering above the center of the room. Entire fleets had vanished. Worlds that once sent daily transmissions now showed nothing but static. Their warships, built with arrogance and pride, drifted like dead stars in the dark. The Varn ambassador, known for his venomous speeches, sat trembling as data flickered across the screen. This cannot be real, he muttered. No fleet disappears without trace. The BRAC warlord growled, slamming his metal fist onto the table, cracking the crystal beneath. They are humans. Primitive. They cannot do this. But the Saran envoy did not look away from the display. Her voice was quiet, almost sorrowful. You keep calling them primitive, she said softly. And that is why you will never understand them. Every corner of the chamber was filled with confusion. Technicians worked furiously at their consoles, trying to re-establish contact with the outer systems. All communications are gone, one shouted. The relay stations are responding, but the signals are altered. The chairwoman of the council turned her gaze toward him, her feathers trembling. Altered how? The technician hesitated, then swallowed hard. They're repeating a phrase. The room fell silent. The chairwoman's voice lowered. What phrase? The technician's voice cracked as he answered. Mercy is over. The words hung in the air like a curse. No one spoke. No one moved. It felt as if the walls themselves were listening. Across the galaxy, the panic spread. Civilian ships disappeared from trade routes. Entire sectors went dark. Reports came in from mining colonies near the Terran border. Ships appearing and vanishing without warning. Strange readings in the sky. Voices whispering through static. They're toying with us, the Varn ambassador hissed. They could have destroyed us already. Why don't they? The Saran envoy's golden eyes met his. Because destruction is not their goal, she said. Understanding is. The words made the room colder. No one wanted to believe her, but deep down they all knew. Humanity was not attacking them. Humanity was teaching them. On the far side of the galaxy, the first clear image of the Terran fleet was finally captured. A scout drone managed to transmit a few seconds of footage before vanishing into static. What it showed made even the bravest soldiers tremble. A single human battleship gliding through space, larger than any vessel ever seen. Its hull black as night, surrounded by arcs of blue light that bent the stars around it. The translation team read the markings on its side and fell silent. The ship's name, written in human script, was Mercy's End. The footage was played in the council chamber, and the room fell into complete stillness. The BRAC warlord leaned forward, his voice barely a whisper. Impossible. They dismantled everything. The Saran envoy shook her head. They dismantled what we could see. not what they could imagine. The holographic map shifted again, showing the path of the Terran fleet as it moved through space. Entire communication lines went dark as the humans advanced. Not destroyed, simply erased from existence. "It's as if they never existed," one aide whispered. "They're wiping out history itself." The chairwoman's hands shook as she stood. "No," she said, voice breaking. "They're reminding us who wrote it." Meanwhile, deep inside Sol's heart, Admiral Elias Holt watched the same galaxy map from his bridge. Red dots marked the Council fleets, blinking in clusters across the rim. Slowly, one by one, the lights began to fade. Around him, his officers worked in silence. "Another sector neutralized," a young woman said quietly. "No casualties reported." Holt nodded. "Good. The message must be clear. We are not executioners." He looked at the dark expanse before him, the cold glow of stars reflected in his eyes. "They called our mercy weakness. Now they'll see that mercy is power restrained." The fleet moved like a storm without thunder. No light, no warning, no sound. They passed through Council space unseen, disabling every satellite, every defense grid, every fleet command system. Humanity's ships did not destroy, they simply silenced. Every weapon that had once been pointed at Earth now sat dead, powerless, unable to even fire. The galaxy's greatest armies became ghosts, their empires blind. And everywhere the humans went, they left behind only one signal pulsing softly through the dark. Mercy is over. Back in the Council, chaos turned to desperation. "We must retaliate," the Brack warlord shouted. "Deploy every fleet we have left." "With what?" the Saran envoy snapped. "Your fleets don't even respond." "Then we rebuild," he roared. "We strike Sol before they strike us." The chamber erupted into shouts, but they were all drowned by a single sound, the crackling of a new transmission. The room froze as the holograms flickered, forming the shape of a human figure standing tall, cloaked in shadow. The face was blurred, but the voice was clear and unmistakably human. "You betrayed the peace we built," the voice said. "You burned our worlds. You called it correction. You called it balance. Now you will see what balance truly means." The hologram vanished, leaving the Council trembling. On 100 worlds, people began to question their leaders. Propaganda networks that once mocked humanity now played fragments of the human message on repeat. The words echoed in every language, in every mind. Mercy is over. Markets collapsed, military control fractured, and fear spread faster than light. But even through the chaos, there was something strange in the fear, a trace of guilt, as if every being in the galaxy now understood what they had done. In the shadow of a dead moon, the Terran fleet paused. Admiral Holt stood at the viewport, the reflection of countless ships shimmering in his eyes. "They're breaking," one officer reported. "Their alliances are collapsing." Holt said nothing. He watched the stars for a long time before speaking. "No," he said quietly. "They're remembering." His voice softened, almost mournful. "They wanted to teach us humility. Now they're learning what mercy costs." The AI beside him spoke gently. "The Council has requested negotiation." Holt smiled faintly, though there was no joy in it. "They will not negotiate. They will beg. And we will listen." His eyes grew distant, heavy with memory. Because mercy is not revenge. Mercy is the moment when the guilty realize they deserve it. In the Council chamber, the delegates gathered for one final emergency session. No recordings, no broadcasts, only whispers in the dark. The chairwoman stood before them, trembling. "We thought we could control them," she said. "We thought their silence meant fear. But silence was their weapon. Their patience was their strength. And we broke it." The Brack warlord growled. "Then what do we do now?" The Saran envoy looked toward the stars beyond the window. "We wait," she whispered, "because when humans are silent, something worse than war is coming." Far beyond the Council's reach, inside Sol's heart, the order was given. The fleet began its slow advance toward the galactic center, not to destroy but to remind. They would strike no world that surrendered, Kill no civilians. Destroy no life unless forced. Humanity's war was not for power. It was for truth, for the broken promise, for the peace that was betrayed. As the first waves of the Terran fleet disappeared into hyperspace, the stars shimmered and dimmed behind them, leaving trails of light that looked almost like tears. In every sector they passed, one message replaced all others on every network, every screen, every sky. You broke the peace. Now you will learn what mercy means. The galaxy that once laughed at Earth now prayed to it. And for the first time since the treaty was signed, the stars themselves went quiet, waiting, trembling, listening for what humanity would say next. The retribution did not begin with fire. It began with silence so deep that entire planets forgot what sound was. Across the Milky Way, the great empires that had broken the Treaty of Soul woke to find their skies empty. Fleets that once patrolled their borders were gone, their communications dead, their ships stranded in space with no power. Worlds that had never known darkness suddenly lost their suns to blackouts, their skies turning cold and blue as invisible Terran vessels passed overhead. The galaxy did not see the war begin because humanity never announced it. There were no warnings, no broadcasts, no declarations, only the quiet arrival of judgment. On the world of Raylos, the capital of the Galactic Council, the morning began like any other. The delegates gathered in their shining towers to argue about control, still refusing to believe that Earth had truly returned. They called the destruction of their fleets an illusion, a trick of technology. They told themselves humans couldn't possibly strike them at the heart of their empire. But when the sun rose over the city's crystal spires, something was different. The light bent wrong. The shadows moved strangely. Then the sky flickered. For a brief moment, every color drained away, and all that remained was silence. The citizens looked up, confused. Then, one by one, the defense satellites above their world turned inward, aiming directly at the planet they were meant to protect. Inside the Council's defense command, alarms screamed as officers scrambled across glowing platforms. "Our satellites are not responding," one shouted. "They've been overridden." The commander slammed his fist against the console. "By who?" The answer came through every speaker in the room, calm, human, and terrifyingly gentle. "By their creators." The room froze. "Who is this?" the commander demanded. The voice did not answer. It only repeated softly, "You built your peace with our technology. You used it against us. Now you will remember who gave you the stars." Then the transmission ended, and the screens went black. Moments later, the entire Raylos defense grid powered down. No explosions, no damage, just silence. The Council's proud army stood blind and useless as the orbiting satellites turned dark, drifting like dead moons. The planet's energy network failed next, its great cities dimming as power grids collapsed one by one. And then, high above the planet, something impossible happened. A shadow moved across the sky. Not a ship, not a fleet, but a wall of light so vast it covered the horizon. The clouds parted, the air trembled, and for a single second, every living being on Raylos looked up and saw it. The Terran fleet, massive and endless, drifting silently above their world. Admiral Elias Holt stood aboard Sol's Heart, staring at the planet below. His officers waited for orders, their faces pale under the dim lights. "They're defenseless, Admiral," one said quietly. "Do we strike?" Holt didn't answer immediately. His gaze stayed fixed on the swirling blue of the Council's homeworld. "No," he said finally. "Not yet. They must see what they created before they feel it." He turned toward his communications officer. "Patch me through." A moment later, his voice echoed across the galaxy, transmitted to every world, every ship, every surviving channel that still listened. "This is Earth," he began, his tone quiet but clear. 50 years ago, we built peace with our blood. We gave the galaxy mercy. We forgave your crimes. We dismantled our fleets because we believed you had changed. And this," he paused, his voice tightening, "this is how you repaid us. You called our compassion weakness. You broke our treaty. You killed our people. And still we have not fired." Across the galaxy, Beings of every kind stopped to listen. Farmers in the fields, miners in the void, soldiers aboard empty ships. All froze as his words spread like light through darkness. "We will not destroy you," Holt continued. "We will remind you. We will show you what mercy truly means." Then the transmission cut, and across the Council's territories, humanity acted. The Terran fleet divided into 7 divisions, each moving with silent precision. One division surrounded the Varn Dominion's core worlds, shutting down their weapon systems and communication arrays. Their warlords screamed orders, but their fleets refused to move. The AI controlling their ships spoke in calm human tones. "Peace is being restored." Another division moved toward the Brack Empire, the most violent of the Council's allies. Their dreadnoughts, built for destruction, found themselves trapped in orbit, unable to fire, unable to flee. The humans didn't fire a single shot. Instead, they reprogrammed the Brack's own orbital cannons to face inward, forcing the warlords to see what they had once done to others. For the first time, the Brack fell silent. In the trade sectors, the Terran signal spread through the galactic economy, freezing every financial network. Credits vanished, trade halted, and every empire that once depended on human technology realized too late that humanity had never truly given up control. They had simply stepped aside and waited for the galaxy to destroy itself. On Raylos, the council chamber went dark. The delegates stood in shadows, lit only by the faint blue glow of emergency lights. The chairwoman's voice trembled. "What do they want?" she asked. No one answered. Then, slowly, the holographic ceiling flickered to life, revealing the image of Earth. Blue, beautiful, unbroken. From its surface came a voice that was not Holt's this time, but a woman's, calm, sorrowful, almost kind. "We wanted peace," she said. "You chose war, so we give you what you gave us, silence." Every screen across the planet flickered and died. The entire galaxy went dark in a single hour. No explosions followed. No invasions. No fleets landing with soldiers. Humanity's retribution was different. It did not burn. It erased. The galaxy's armies could no longer communicate. Their ships could not fly. Their leaders could not speak. But humanity did not kill them. They simply left them to live in the silence they once forced upon others. On Sol's heart, the bridge was quiet. The hum of the engines was the only sound. Admiral Holt stood with his hands behind his back, staring at the star map as it showed thousands of council systems dimming one by one. His second-in-command spoke softly. "It's done, sir. The council's power grid is gone. They're cut off." Holt nodded slowly. "And casualties?" "None," the officer replied. Holt's shoulders relaxed slightly. "Good. Then it's working." The officer hesitated. "Sir, some will call this cruelty." Holt turned his gaze toward the stars. "Cruelty?" he said softly. "Cruelty was watching children burn on Vega Prime. Cruelty was silence while our colonies died. What we're giving them now is mercy." His voice grew quiet, the kind they never understood. Outside, the Terran fleet drifted in formation above the dead skies of the council world. No weapons glowed, no engines roared. Only the faint hum of power, steady as a heartbeat, echoed through the void. Across every ship, a single word pulsed on the screens in white text: mercy. On Raylos, people began to emerge from their darkened buildings, staring at the night sky. There were no stars, only the massive outline of the Terran ships, blotting out the heavens. A child tugged on her mother's sleeve. "Mom," she whispered, "are they going to kill us?" The mother stared upward, tears in her eyes. "No," she said softly. "They already did. Just not the way we expected." Inside the council chamber, the Saran envoy whispered a single sentence that no one dared answer. "They could have destroyed us in a moment. Why didn't they?" Her question hung in the dark as outside. The human fleet turned away, engines igniting with quiet light, leaving behind a world stripped of arrogance but still alive. Humanity's lesson had been given, and for the first time, the galaxy began to understand what the words mercy is over truly meant. Back on Earth, Admiral Holt stood in silence before the grand window of the Terran Command Center. The planet below glowed in the light of dawn. The AI's voice broke the quiet. "It is done, Admiral. The Council's empire has fallen." Holt nodded. "No," he said softly. "It has just begun to rebuild." He turned away from the glass, his face hidden in shadow. "We took their weapons. Now let them rebuild their souls." Outside, the fleet moved into the deep, silent as the stars that watched them. The war was not won through destruction, but through understanding forced upon the arrogant. The galaxy had broken the treaty, and Earth had shown them what mercy truly meant. And somewhere between those quiet stars, a message pulsed endlessly through the void. "This is Earth. We remember. We forgive. But never again." In the silence that followed the fall of the Council, the galaxy waited. No one dared to speak the name of Earth aloud. Entire worlds lived under the quiet fear of being heard, as if even a whisper might call the humans back. For weeks, there was no movement, no messages, only the echo of their mercy still lingering in the stars. Then, one night, a transmission broke through the void, faint, distorted, almost like a ghost. It came from deep within a forgotten sector near the edge of the galactic rim, an area once thought lost during the First Sol War. The code was old, older than the Treaty of Sol, older even than the Council itself. When the Terran fleet intercepted it, the signal carried a single line: Admiral Kira Holt requesting access to command. The bridge of Sol's heart fell into silence. Every officer turned toward Admiral Elias Holt, her brother, whose hands tightened around the console. His voice trembled, not from fear, but from disbelief. "That's impossible," he whispered. "She died 50 years ago." But the signal was real. It pulsed in steady rhythm, carrying human encryption codes that hadn't been used since the last war. The AI confirmed it twice. Admiral Kira Holt. DNA signature. Verified. Elias's voice broke through the static, quiet but heavy. "Locate it." The coordinates appeared on the screen. A dead system near the edge of the Perseus arm, where no light had reached in centuries. The crew stared in silence as the Admiral's jaw set. "Prepare the fleet," he said. "We're going to bring her home." The journey took 3 days through hyperspace. The fleet moved in complete silence, their engines dimmed, their transponders off. When they emerged from the jump, the stars around them were strange. Too still, too empty. The entire system looked dead. No life, no light, only the faint shadow of a planet torn in half by something ancient. At its core floated a wreck, massive, blackened, surrounded by debris. As the Terran ships approached, scanners confirmed the impossible. It was the Erebus, humanity's first dreadnought, lost during the last days of the Sol War. The ship was thought destroyed, vaporized with its crew. But there it was, still alive, faint energy readings flickering from within. And inside, the signal of Admiral Kira Holt still pulsed, slow and steady, like a heartbeat. Elias stood at the observation deck, watching the wreck come into view. His reflection was pale against the glass. "She was the one who ended the war," he said softly. "She convinced the Council to sign the treaty, and they killed her for it." The AI's voice replied gently, "She believed peace was worth dying for." Elias's eyes hardened. "Then let's find out if it was." Boarding the Erebus felt like entering a tomb. The air was cold, heavy, and filled with echoes of the past. The walls were scorched from battle, the lights dim and flickering. As the Terran Marines moved through the corridors, their footsteps echoed like ghosts. Old human symbols covered the bulkheads, mottos of a forgotten age. "We fight not to win, but to survive." Deep within the core, they reached the command deck. And there, seated at the captain's chair, was a figure. Her uniform was torn, her hair silver with age, but her eyes opened as if she had never closed them. Kira Holt was alive. When Elias stepped forward, he couldn't speak at first. The sister he had buried decades ago looked at him as though no time had passed. "You took your time," she said quietly, her voice raw but steady. Elias exhaled, half a laugh, half a sob. "You should have stayed dead," he said softly. She smiled faintly. "I tried. She looked around the ruined bridge. You came for me. You called, he said. I had to. Her gaze darkened. No, you didn't come for me. You came for what I built. She turned toward the control panel beside her, and with a flick of her hand, the room came alive. Screens lit up, showing images of the galaxy, the Council's fall, the Terran fleets, the signal spreading across systems. You started it, she said. You showed them what mercy means. Elias nodded slowly. It was necessary. Her eyes, sharp as they had been 50 years ago, fixed on him. Mercy is never necessary, she said. It's a choice, and choices have consequences. Elias looked at her in silence, then finally said, They broke the treaty. They slaughtered our people. We gave them half a century of peace, and they spat on it. You would have done the same. She shook her head slowly. No, brother. I would have made them understand. Not fear us. You think they've learned mercy? No. They've learned terror. And terror fades faster than guilt. Her voice softened. If you want them to remember, show them what forgiveness costs. The ship trembled as systems came online. You've been hiding all this time, Elias said. Why? Kira walked toward the viewport, her hand brushing the cracked glass. Because I was waiting, she said. For the moment the galaxy forgot peace. And for the moment you would need to be reminded of it. She turned to face him, her expression heavy with sorrow. I hid something, Elias. Something the Council never knew we built. His chest tightened. Another weapon? She shook her head. Not a weapon. A truth. She touched the console, and the galaxy map shifted, zooming into a sector hidden from every chart. Project Solace, she whispered. The last defense humanity ever built. Not to destroy, but to heal. Elias stared at the coordinates. You built this in secret? Kira nodded. It was my failsafe. In case peace failed, in case we became what they feared. Her eyes locked with his. It can end all conflict, but it will cost us everything. The silence that followed was heavier than any war. The AI's voice broke through, hesitant. Admiral, activating Project Solace will dismantle our entire defense network. The fleet will lose power. We will be vulnerable. Kira's voice was calm. Then maybe it's time we trusted the galaxy to survive without fear. Elias's jaw clenched. You think they'll forgive us after this? After everything they did? Kira stepped closer, her voice low but firm. Forgiveness is not for them. It's for us. For a long moment, neither spoke. The ship creaked around them, groaning like an old memory refusing to fade. Then, slowly, Elias lowered his head. You always were the better one, he said quietly. Kira smiled faintly, her eyes glimmering with tears. No, she said, just the one who never stopped believing. Together, they stood before the ancient console, side by side once more. If we do this, Elias said, there's no turning back. Kira nodded. There never was. She reached for the control panel, her hand trembling slightly. For every life we lost, for every peace we tried to keep, for every promise we failed to protect, let this be the last lesson. Her voice broke into a whisper. Mercy is over, but humanity remains. When she pressed the command, a light spread through the Erebus, soft and golden, flowing into the stars like water. Across the galaxy, Terran fleets froze in motion. Their engines dimmed, their weapons powered down. The same light spread across Council worlds, repairing the systems humanity had silenced. Cities flickered back to life. Communication returned. People looked to the skies in awe as the message played through every channel, carried by Kira's voice, the voice of the woman the galaxy once betrayed. This is Admiral Kira Holt of Earth. We remember the peace you broke. We remember the mercy you mocked. And yet, we will give you one final gift. A chance to rebuild not under us, but with us. The next time you break peace, there will be no mercy left to show. On Sol's heart, Elias stood in silence as he listened to her words, tears burning behind his eyes. The fleet was still, bathed in golden light, the hum of engines fading into quiet. His sister's face appeared on the screen one last time. "Goodbye, brother," she said softly. "Take care of them." Then the transmission ended, and the light faded. In the silence that followed, Elias whispered the words no one else could hear. "You never died. You just waited for us to remember who we were." He turned toward the stars, his voice breaking. "Rest now, Kira. We'll finish what you started." And as the Erebus drifted slowly into the void, its lights dimming like a dying star, the galaxy felt something it hadn't felt in generations. Hope, not born from victory, but from understanding. Humanity had shown them power, had taught them fear, but through one woman's return, they remembered Mercy's true face. The galaxy would never be the same again. The galaxy woke to light. It wasn't the light of war or the fire of destruction. It was warm, steady, and unfamiliar. A light that healed instead of burned. Across the stars, systems that had gone dark flickered back to life, their power grids humming again, their skies brightening as if the universe itself had taken a deep breath. Planets that had spent weeks in silence heard sound again. The faint static of communication, the soft hum of engines restarting, the distant murmur of voices calling one another's names. It was as if creation itself had turned a page, leaving behind the age of arrogance and fear. But beneath that light, a truth echoed louder than any battle ever fought. The lesson of mercy had begun. On the Council's homeworld, the surviving delegates stood among the ruins of their once mighty chamber. The glass dome that had reflected 1,000 stars was cracked, the banners of empires torn and scattered across the floor. The chairwoman, her feathers now gray and dull, stared up at the faint glow in the sky, the golden wave spreading across the horizon. "It's them," she whispered, her voice trembling. "The humans." The Sarin envoy nodded slowly, her voice barely audible. "No, not them. Her." They all looked up at the holographic display that flickered faintly above the chamber, where Kira Holt's transmission still played in endless repetition. Her calm voice filled the silence. "This is Earth. We will give you one final gift. A chance to rebuild not under us but with us." For the first time in galactic history, the council chamber was filled with quiet reflection instead of debate. No one shouted. No one demanded. The words of a single human woman had broken what armies never could, their pride. The Varn ambassador, once fierce and cruel, now knelt beside the broken table, his claws shaking as he whispered, "We destroyed their peace, and they still gave it back." The Brack warlord stood with his armor scorched and his voice low. "They could have ended us all. They chose not to." His second-in-command growled softly, "That's weakness." The warlord turned sharply toward him, eyes burning. "No, that's power. The kind we'll never have." Meanwhile, far above them, the Terran fleet drifted in silence, their engines dimmed, their guns still cold. From the command deck of Soul's Heart, Admiral Elias Holt watched the galaxy below. The golden light of Project Solace reflected in his eyes, and for the first time in years, he felt something unfamiliar, peace. The AI's voice spoke softly beside him. "Admiral, the Council's worlds are regaining function. No hostilities detected." Holt nodded slowly. "Good," he said quietly. Then she was right. He looked out the viewport, watching the faint shimmer of light stretch across space like a sunrise. Mercy wasn't about control. It was about letting go. He thought of his sister, of Kira's final words before her signal faded. "Forgiveness is not for them. It's for us." Those words echoed through his mind like a heartbeat. For 50 years, humanity had waited, watching the galaxy mock the peace they had built. They had learned patience, they had learned silence, but above all, they had learned restraint. And now, through Kira's sacrifice, they had learned something greater, that mercy did not mean weakness. It meant strength powerful enough to stop when you could destroy. Across the galaxy, the results of humanity's choice began to unfold. On Vega Prime, the colony that had been burned to ash, the air shimmered as Terran drones descended from orbit, not to conquer, but to rebuild. Machines repaired homes, planted forests, and purified the air. Children who had never seen the sky free of smoke watched in awe as blue light spread over their world. On Brackies, where warlords once ruled through blood, The Terran message appeared on every screen. No more chains. No more fear. Build something worthy of the silence you earned. The warlords destroyed their own weapons, their voices breaking as they read the words again and again. In the ruins of the Varn Dominion's capital, crowds gathered before a single projection. The image of Earth, glowing faintly against the black. A recording played on loop, spoken by Kira Holt's voice. "We have seen what you can destroy. Now show us what you can build." The people stood for hours, listening, until one by one they began to rebuild the fallen city with their own hands. The galaxy that had once laughed at humanity's compassion now rebuilt itself under their example. No orders, no occupation, no demands, only a quiet reminder that the greatest strength was not in domination, but in discipline. The Council, stripped of its armies, began sending aid to the same colonies it had once attacked. Entire worlds signed a new charter not written by power, but by humility. And at the center of every declaration were 5 words that became sacred across the stars. Mercy is not weakness. Mercy wins. Yet even in peace, the humans remained unseen. The Terran fleet retreated to the edge of the known galaxy, their ships disappearing beyond the veil of dark space. They left no rulers behind, no governors, no conquerors. Only their message, their warning, and their silence. On Earth, the lights of the cities reflected in the oceans like stars reborn. The people stood on beaches, watching the night sky, knowing their brothers and sisters in the void had kept their promise. They had not just defended humanity, they had defended the meaning of being human. Inside Sol's heart, Elias sat alone in the observation chamber. The stars stretched endlessly before him, and he could still hear his sister's voice echoing in the hum of the ship. "Forgiveness is not for them. It's for us." The AI spoke softly. "Admiral, the fleet awaits your final order." He closed his eyes, his voice barely above a whisper. "Stand down." The engines powered off, and the great ship drifted quietly into the dark. "She did it," he said, almost to himself. "She reminded them who we were." The AI hesitated, then asked, "And who are we now?" Elias smiled faintly, tears glimmering in his eyes. "We're the silence after the storm." For a long moment, the only sound was the hum of life support and the slow pulse of the ship's core. Then a faint transmission broke through, one of the last messages from the Council's homeworld. It was the Sarin envoy, her voice humble, filled with quiet awe. "This is the Galactic Council," she said. "To the people of Earth, to humanity, we are sorry. We thought your mercy was weakness. We see now it was strength. You gave us light when we gave you fire. You rebuilt us when you could have destroyed us. We will never forget." Elias listened in silence. He didn't respond. He didn't need to. Humanity had already spoken, through patience, through silence, through the lesson of mercy that would echo for millennia. Outside, the stars shimmered with a quiet kind of peace, one that came not from treaties or power, but from understanding. The galaxy had learned the truth the hard way, that mercy was not the absence of strength, but the mastery of it. Humanity had fought not to conquer, but to remind creation of the meaning of restraint. They had taught the galaxy that peace, once broken, could be rebuilt only by those strong enough to forgive. And so, as the Terran fleet drifted toward the edge of known space, fading into the void beyond the stars, their legacy remained. A message written in light, carried forever by the echoes of their silence. Mercy is not over. It is only reborn. The stars had never looked so quiet. The war was over, though no one dared to call it that. The galaxy had changed in ways no one could measure. Not through conquest, not through surrender, but through understanding carved by the hands of those who had once been mocked as weak. Across the void, the once proud empires rebuilt their worlds, their children learning of Earth not as an enemy or savior, but as a reminder. Stories were told in every corner of the galaxy, stories whispered like prayers, of a species that answered betrayal with patience, destruction with restraint, and power with silence. The name human had become more than a word. It had become a lesson. Yet in that vast peace that followed, one truth remained: humanity had vanished from sight. The Terran fleet, their great armada that once cast shadows across the stars, was gone. Their beacons, their codes, their transmissions, all silent. It was as if Earth itself had stepped away from the galaxy it had saved, leaving behind only echoes of its voice. But deep beyond the edge of known space, where the light of the last star faded into eternal black, a single ship drifted. It was Sol's Heart, the oldest of the Terran fleet, its hull scarred by wars long past, its engines dim but alive. Inside, Admiral Elias Holt stood before the observation window, the faint reflection of Earth's symbol glowing behind him on the wall, a circle of blue light still shining like memory. He looked out into the emptiness where even starlight no longer reached, his breath fogging the glass. Around him, the ship's systems hummed softly, the AI's voice calm and human. "Admiral," it said quietly, "the last signal from the Council has been received. They are rebuilding." Elias didn't turn. His voice was low, almost gentle. "And us?" The AI hesitated. "We are forgotten." A small smile touched his face. "Good." He closed his eyes, letting the silence sink in. It wasn't loneliness he felt, it was completion. Humanity had done what it set out to do. They had ended the cycle of pride and pain, not by burning the galaxy, but by forcing it to listen. Every world, every race, every empire had learned what Earth had known all along, that peace built by fear cannot last, but peace born from mercy can outlive even the stars. As the ship drifted farther into the void, the AI spoke again, softer this time. "Admiral, one final protocol remains." Elias opened his eyes. "The message," the AI confirmed. "Yes, it's time." He nodded slowly. "Then let's finish it." He stepped toward the console, his reflection shimmering against the faint blue glow. His hands moved slowly, deliberately, as he activated the transmission beacon. The system hummed, the panels lighting up one by one, and for the first time in years, the insignia of Earth appeared in full brilliance. A globe surrounded by 12 wings of light, the mark of humanity's unity. Across the ship, the crew gathered quietly. No one spoke. They knew what this was, the last message humanity would ever send to the galaxy. A message not of power, but of closure. Elias stood tall, his voice steady, carrying the weight of every soul that had fought, lost, forgiven, and endured. "To all who hear this," he began, his tone calm, deep, almost like a whisper carried by eternity. "This is Earth." Every communication array across the galaxy came alive at once. Every screen, every console, every beacon lit up with the signal. On thousands of worlds, workers stopped, soldiers froze, children looked to the sky. They all heard it. 50 years ago, we made peace. You broke it. You called our kindness weakness. You mistook our silence for fear. You thought mercy meant surrender. You were wrong. His voice deepened, not with anger, but with truth. Mercy is not surrender. Mercy is strength. Strength that chooses not to destroy, even when it can. In the council chamber, the delegates stood together beneath the great dome rebuilt from the ruins. The holographic image of Elias flickered before them, his human eyes calm, his face lit by faint blue light. He continued, "You've seen what our mercy looks like when it ends, but you have also seen what it means when it returns. We will not rule you. We will not command you. The galaxy is yours to shape now. But remember, peace does not come from treaties. It comes from choice. The choice to forgive before it's too late." Tears glimmered on faces across 1,000 species as the voice carried on. "We have given you everything, light, life, and a lesson written in silence. Protect it. Teach it. Let our absence remind you that power without compassion is the fastest path to extinction." His tone softened, filled with the ache of something more human than words. "We are not gods. We are not ghosts. We are only human, and that is enough." On Vega Prime, where the colonies once burned, survivors gathered in the rebuilt city square as the message echoed from the sky. On Brachys, hardened warriors knelt before the glowing projection of Earth's blue symbol. On Raylos, the seat of the council, The chairwoman bowed her head and whispered the words along with him. And across the galaxy, from frozen moons to golden worlds, every living soul listened. Elias's voice grew quieter now, softer, almost tender. If one day you look to the stars and find only silence, do not be afraid. It means we are watching, not as conquerors, but as guardians of what we once hoped you could become. Let the silence remind you that peace is earned every day, not by fear, but by mercy. He paused, letting the weight of his words drift into eternity. Then, his final words came like a gentle farewell. This is Earth's final transmission. We forgive you, we release you, and we remember you. The signal spread like a sunrise across the galaxy, traveling faster than light, reaching every corner, every heart. Then, slowly, one by one, the lights aboard Sol's heart began to fade. The engines powered down. The ship's beacon dimmed until only the blue emblem of Earth glowed faintly in the dark. Elias stood alone, watching as the last light flickered. The AI spoke one final time. "Admiral, the message is complete." He nodded slowly. "Then our work is done." He turned toward the darkness, his expression calm, almost peaceful. "Take us home." The engines roared once, a single heartbeat of light in the endless void. Then they went silent. The ship drifted beyond the last visible star, into the deep black where no signal could ever reach. And for the first time in known history, the galaxy was completely still. But somewhere in that silence, something lingered. A faint echo of a voice carried by the radiation of dying suns. A signal repeating endlessly through the dark. We are humanity. We are not gone. We are the silence that remembers. On distant worlds, children would look to the stars and swear they could still hear it. A heartbeat beneath the hum of the universe, soft, eternal, human. The Council rebuilt. Empires rose and fell. But Earth's final message remained, written not in fire, but in memory. And as centuries passed, the lesson endured that mercy, once given, can change the course of stars. The galaxy never forgot the day humanity spoke for the last time. They called it the day the stars went silent. But among the old races, in their oldest songs, they called it something else. They called it the day mercy won.